whilst we're on transfers, then so we've done. We'll talk. We've done most of the press conference. So fitness out of the way. Let's talk transfers. So George, he quashed the Dibling thing. Although he said there's no assurances in football, he's pretty confident that he'll be coaching Dibling for the rest of the season. And I'm pretty sure I remember him saying something similar about Camaldine. In terms of other outgoings, because I don't want to spend too much time on the Dibling thing. It's you could go over it for hours and come to the same conclusion. Other outgoings, we've read about Charlie Taylor being agreed between clubs. That is now a decision on the player's side, is it?
That's what's been reported. I know Charlie Taylor was in training the day that was reported because I was at the training ground to speak to Adam Armstrong and I saw him leave the building. I think that's one where Ivan Juric clearly wants to get players out the door. He wants to get players out the door who aren't really playing, and Charlie Taylor fits the bill for that exactly. So if there are clubs in the Championship who want to take him, it probably works very well for Southampton. I think Gavin Bazunu is another one. We've spoken about him before the podcast. I think Ivan Juric admitted in the press conference earlier that is the plan, essentially. That's what the club want. They want him to go out on loan. He's not realistically going to be registered into this squad. So those are two that I would keep an eye on. Sam Ammo's another one, I think. If they can get a loan for him, they would be a little bit daft not to. I spoke to him about going out on loan, and he seems quite relaxed about it, to be fair. He's happy to basically do whatever Southampton want him to do. And I think as an 18-year-old, there's always going to be that element of you're not going to go knocking on anybody's door demanding you go out and play senior football. But as you've touched on, he looks far too good for the under-21s. He scored in 3 consecutive games, very similar goals as well, cutting in and smashing it in or bending it in or whatever it is. They're really good goals. And Championship or top of League One would be brilliant for him to, because we talk about Dibling being bigger than him and stuff. But I think although Sam Ammo is smaller, physically smaller, just in terms of their natural build, I feel like when you sort of see the two up close, Tyler has always felt like a bit of a bigger young lad. But I think there's part of it. You look at some of the best players in the world; they're not physically big, are they? I think you have to almost learn how to adapt with that, and the only way you're going to do that is by playing regular football. So it would be nice if Sam could go and play some regular football. I think he's earned it, really.
He absolutely has, and I remember when he made his senior debut the season we went down, and he was 16, and I don't know if it was this day, but against Liverpool at home. Do you remember? Was it last day of the season when Camaldine scored 2, and Sam Ammo came on and he was brilliant. And he was I think he was like gliding past Gakpo and a couple of other senior. And it's like, this kid's 16 out, and he's so small. How is he doing that with the ball? Like, his center of gravity is outrageous. How he can like jink one way and the ball goes another, and he's just superb, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, if you could get him playing a decent standard of football, because I think next season it would be so silly not to give him a go. It would be crazy. Martin, I've also read some reports, a few reports actually, saying that there are multiple Spanish clubs who are monitoring Juan Larios' situation. Have you seen any of that? I believe it's Betis and Sevilla, I believe. What? It's a strange one to me, because he's not kicked a ball in 2 years.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's obviously his agent's probably going to try and get him out, and that is what's creating a bit of noise. Whether there's interest in that was another matter, but look, it doesn't look like he's going to feature anytime soon, does it? I don't even know. Is he played in the under-21s? I don't think he has.
He played a couple of games, and unfortunately for him, he keeps getting a lot of injury setbacks. Whenever I'm leaving the training ground, it feels like I'm always seeing working with someone individually. I saw it again in this week. He's always sort of working with someone. I think it's quite interesting, though, the clubs that he has been linked with. I feel like Sevilla were linked with him previously, and those two clubs are from Andalusia, which is where he's from. So I've not heard anything about those clubs being after him, etc. But in that sense, they kind of make sense from that side of things. But Martin, you hand it back over to you. What you were saying?
I think it makes sense to move him on, doesn't it? If you can recoup some money on him, they'll do it. Like you said, he needs to thin their squad out. The squad's huge, isn't it? It's massive. We don't have loads of we're not blessed with a standout left back, are we? Not really. We play wing backs. It says a lot, doesn't it, when Walker Peters spent our best right back spent most of the season playing left back or left wing back, which is mad, really. I think we lose a lot doing that with him. I've got to give a shout out to Ryan Manning, by the way, because his name might not come up otherwise. I think he's done all right this season. A lot of people Didn't think he was a Premier League player, but I've seen moments of him. He gives 110%, which is more to be said than a few of the others. And look, he's done all right. And I think he'd be an important body next season back in the Championship, because we know what he can do in the Championship. He'd be important, but we're not blessed with a standout. There's not anyone coming through, is there? So they probably will go out and sign somebody to play that side without any question.
Well, they've just brought Wellington in, obviously.
Of course, Wellington. I forgot about Wellington.
We're probably not going to see him for a little while. Every time we've asked Ivan, he's sort of a little bit off. He was injured towards the end of his time in Brazil. I thought he was all right when I watched him play 45 minutes for the 21s. He was getting stuck in. By all accounts, he's more of a defensive left back than an offensive. When he can knock a good ball into the box, is what I've heard. But from what I saw of him, he was sort of like getting into tackles. I think when you see a Brazilian fullback, your mind immediately thinks they're a failed, tricky winger who's been pushed further back. You don't really think of defensive players for Brazilians, do you? But I'll be interested to see what he's like when he actually gets a chance to play in English football.
Yeah, what is he left-footed?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned about Manning there, and from what I've picked up, and he said it over a few different interviews, but in different parts. From what I've picked up, he likes Ryan Manning when Paul Onuachu is on the pitch because he can get the whip, but I think he likes Carl Walker-Peters coming in off the left because he offers that cut in, and especially like he likes situations like against Palace away when Walker-Peters beats a couple and squares it, right? So I think it kind of depends on the game in terms of what type of left back he likes to use. I agree. It probably would make sense to get rid of Juan Laris. While it's on my mind, George, and talking about players who just never play football, is Ross Stewart retiring anytime soon, or is he going to play football? Or
I think he's constantly just working on trying to get back fit. I do feel quite bad for him because he's obviously come into the Premier League, or he come into the Championship wanting that Premier League chance. He deserved it in some ways from the way he ended his time at Sunderland, although it was an injury that sort of stopped it sooner than he probably would have wanted to. But I'm not too sure we're ever really gonna see him, because with every injury he gets, the recovery for the next one becomes harder and longer, because you've got that sort of backlog of injuries that if you do one small thing, it's going to have a knock-on effect. And if he's injured one part of his body, another part of his body is going to be sort of more susceptible to being injured. And I feel like he's probably someone, if he was fit and firing, if they were to have signed him now rather than when they did sign him, obviously they're in the Premier League rather than the Championship, he probably would have fit a system like Ivan Juric is. He's someone who's got that physical profile. He's quite quick for his size, and it's just a shame that he's going to be remembered as a player Southampton spent a lot of money on, but ultimately never played because of injuries.
It's an absolutely fascinating one, because you kind of write it off when he's expected back halfway through last season, and then you don't see him until nearly the playoff final, and then he just doesn't play, and then doesn't play at the start of the season because he's injured, and then he gets like 10, and you've wrote it off. It's such a fascinating story, the Ross Stewart one. It really, really, like, I just think about it sometimes, like, what is he up to? What is he doing? Is he ever going to play for us? Like, is there
a lot of rehab?
A lot of rehab, yeah. Is there a chance that he is going to be able to pay back? Forget about the transfer fee, just the medical bills. Like, is there a chance he's going to score a goal or two for us at any stage? It's just like, wow. I don't even know what his contract situation is. I don't know how long we sign him for or anything like that. Yeah, just strange. Martin, so talking about transfers, there's been also movement higher up in the club since we last spoke. So Henrik Kraft's been moved on from positions in both Southampton and Valenciennes, which is the French arm of Sport Republic. And it looks like our man is Johannes Spors, although there seems to be a hold up. I don't know, George, if you know any more about that, but there seems to be a hold up with work permits and stuff. Martin, do you think this is like a public sort of like, that was the guy, this is the thing that needs to change, or is this a situation where someone had to go and it just happened to be him?
It's an interesting one because I talk of it that he stepped down. Did he step down, or was he forced to?
I think the official line is he'd resigned, but the fact that he'd resigned from both simultaneously, you'd imagine is he jumped before he was pushed, I imagine.
It's interesting that Dragon's actually taken the role as being the chairman. Whether he's going to stay as a chairman, I think it's a big thing. He's obviously he can't be happy about the way that his money's been used. I'll be pretty furious. We've spent more money than we've spent in years prior, and it's just been pissed up a wall, really. So mismanaged, but it's just not. They're not the right people. Not football people. Not only do they not have football people, they haven't had Southampton people. I still think at some clubs, certainly a club like Southampton, you need people that know the club and know the city and know and have a connection. There's no connection. I don't feel any connection really with my football club like I used to. And I think a lot of the fans say that as well. They've got a lot of work to do this summer. The fans won't forgive Sport Republic, let's be honest, for 2 relegations in 3 years. Yeah, last season was brilliant, get promoted, but we only just did that. Let's remember, we just got it over the line. It was a wonderful day, but we just got it over the line, and thankfully we did, because I think it's important financially. We had to go back up because of the money, and yeah, we go back down. It's really, really painful, but they have to build so much better for when they come back next time round, if we can get back next time round. But you need the right people to do that. Jason Wilcox was obviously a big person at the football club. I didn't replace him, did they? They went into the summer so naive. You've got a manager that's not even 40. He was a great bloke, really lovely bloke. But he needed Premier League people around him, people that had done it at the highest level. And there wasn't anybody with any leadership there at all. And no wonder it was the recipe for an absolute disaster. And it's turned out that way. And I hope that Dragon can get the right people around him. I really do.
Yeah, I mentioned it in a video I did earlier in the week. It started to feel like Dragon's taking back control of a situation that was put onto his lap by this group of entrepreneurs and these investors, and saying, look, we got this for you, this is going to be superb. And he's yeah, I've got it, and he's got the dream, and now he's like watching it all just be like a gamble after gamble, and it's like, I'm tired of this now. I'm going to take control. That's how it looks. But George, do you know anything more Johannesspor's, the incoming? Is there anything about work permits or?
Yeah,
I think that's the main thing,
isn't
right?
it? Yeah, basically that he's the man they want, and they were keeping it quite quiet for a little while that he was the man they want, because I don't think it was all tied up when it sort of came when Kraft sort of stepped away and they said that they were going to bring someone in. I think they've been in contact with the FA to try and sort it out, and it's the second time now this season, isn't it? We've seen sort of work permit issues, because that was what held Ivan Juric off for a little bit, about being in the dugout, and we knew he was going to be in charge, and then he was obviously had to watch on from Fulham, and then finally got into the game. It's interesting that I feel like they're making the decision now in terms of the hierarchy of football people that they probably should have made when Jason Wilcox left. They managed to get promoted with Mark Bitcon in the role, but he's not really a developer a director of football when you sort of look at what he's done previously in his career. And look, he did all right in the time where he carried on in Jason Wilcox's lead. But you kind of, as you've touched on there, in the summer is when they should have gone and got someone in, and it may not have made a difference. And now they can go and make that change, and it looks like they're trying to fix things, but because they are trying to fix things. But it'd be interesting to see what would have been different if they brought someone in at that point who maybe would have done the recruitment, because I think their recruitment this summer, as we sort of touched on there, it's been a lot of hits, and then there's been a lot of misses, and there's been some hits, because they have found some players like Matty Fernandez who they're going to sell for profit, but then they've also signed players like Ben Brereton Diaz who they didn't pay too much money for, but he never really looked like he fit the system at all.
Yeah, and that is, for me, that's been the most telling thing of the past few weeks, Martin. So the summer signings who've come in, we're looking at potentially 4 of them out of the door before the last week of the window, obviously with Charlie Taylor on his way out. So you had Edwards going out on loan. I understand that one. Cornet's loan being terminated. Brereton Diaz effectively being sold, but I'll be shocked if Sheffield United come up and they don't buy him. And Charlie Taylor going out seemingly on loan either to Hull or to somewhere else. It's like a public holding your hands up of how wrong you got it. So who do you sort of point the blame at? So is it's someone had to have been responsible for allowing these signings to happen, i.e. do you like, or was it just just an absolute concoction of shit? Did they say, oh, we'll base it off of some sort of recruitment, like some sort of analysis, and we'll also ask the manager what players he would like, and then we'll find somewhere in the middle. Like, it just seemed absolutely pathetic, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a terrible window, awful window, really. Yeah, who was responsible for it? Is it Darren Mowbray? He has a big say, doesn't he, in transfers? And when I met Russell in person at the Puma event at St Mary's, he said he was having a big say in the transfers. He was finding targets that he wanted as well, and he said that. So yeah, I think they have to have a long look at who's responsible for scouting of players, and did they really think what they when Ben Brereton Diaz come in, he looked good on paper, didn't he? But where did he fit? You know, if he was going to play wide on the right, which he didn't really fit what we were trying to do. It just wasn't a fit for us. And Charlie Taylor again, he had experience of playing in the Premier League, just not worked out. A lot of Burnley fans said to me he was all right, but he wasn't like an outstanding player. You know, he would do a job, but we didn't bring in players that are going to make us tons better than we were. I think everybody wanted Harwood Bellis and everybody wanted Downs. I think we're all in that camp in the summer. It's just not really. I think Downs has maybe struggled for consistency with injuries. Maybe he's just been unfortunate. Maybe he's just not good enough for the Premier League. Remains to be seen. He's still young, got a long way to go. Harwood Bellis is still young. He's got a long way to go. Still think he'd get better, but I don't think there'd be clubs knocking on the door to buy him. No, I just don't see it. But I think he's a good player and he will get better. They'll all get better. But yeah, the whole recruitment was just, it needs to be better. They need to learn from their mistakes, but they haven't done, have they? Because, you know, we go back to the January of the season we last got relegated, and how many players are left in the building from them? Inuachu and Silamana, isn't it? And then we've tried to sell them. And James Bree, yeah. So there's just the three left. That was just the worst window ever, wasn't it? It was just horrific. But this summer one is pretty close.
And don't get it twisted. Onuachu and Sulemana would have left if the right offer came in for him. It just didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's interesting. I think there is balance to be struck, because to get Ronnie Edwards for 3 million is outrageous business, and it will be proved to be outrageous business. And at the time, it looked like superb value for Brereton Diaz, and for all the tea in China, it looked like he was going to go down the middle because he was poaching goals for Sheffield United at the arse end of last season from the 6-yard area, toe poking him in. He thought, well, he'll play through the middle, won't he? Because we've got the two guys on the left and on the right, and it's like it just didn't work like that. And I just want people to remember this when these players go and do well, because Ronnie Edwards is going to do well in the Championship because he's superb. If Cornet stays fit, he will do well in Italy, because that's just because Italy is nowhere near the level that it is. Even the manager said that 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was. And Brereton Diaz will score goals in the Championship. So don't look at these players going on and go, oh, look, we got rid of players that weren't doing anything for us. We're no, they will do well. It's a level thing. They just weren't up to the level. We needed at minimum 3 Aaron Ramsdale level signings to have a chance, and we made one at minimum, by the way. And I'm talking middle of the park, top of the park, goalkeeper. That if you'd have had 3 players on his kind of level of experience and like proven, you've got somewhat of a chance, because then everything goes around them. But we didn't. We made one, and it just wasn't good enough. You could go on about that for hours.